Hello, this is Jed Brewer with Study Groups in the Below the Line Club. Really a delight to have you on the call today as we talk about employee retention. And if your firm is like any other firm in the U.S., we're all struggling really bad right now, trying to get good quality people and retain those people once we have them, being ghosted in interviews, or just the pool of candidates that we're getting aren't necessarily the ones that we would want to get. So I hope you find this to be a timely topic today as we talk about employee retention, and specifically how to keep employees twice as long as your competitors and to do it at the same wage that your competitors are paying. We have David McClaskey, who is going to join us and share with us on this topic. And David is president and founder of the McClaskey Excellence Institute, and he's been doing this for 22 years. Really bright individual. One of the ways that the McClaskey Excellence Institute goes to market is through their Achieving World-Class Results class that is open to the public. Any one of you or team members are able to take that should you want. I took his class actually 6 or 7 months ago and found it to be really instructive. As a result of that, when we formed our new district manager study group, we had David come and present to the district managers just a few weeks ago. The feedback from those members was excellent, and David's going to share some of this information in a much more compressed version here with you guys today. One of the things about David, just a quick introduction, is he's helped 7 companies win 8 different Baldrige Awards, including the only 2 restaurant companies that have ever won it, and the Ritz-Carlton Hotel won it twice under his stewardship. And so excited to have David talk about how role model companies are able to keep their employees twice as long while paying the same. So with that introduction, I'm going to turn it over to David, and I just want you to know that we're going to make this recorded and then make the recording available for the next couple weeks. If you want to view it again or share it with your colleagues, but will be available and you'll receive this after the webinar. But David, let me turn it to you and tell us, in the next half hour, how can we better retain employees?
All right, Jed, well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to get to talk to you and the other study group members and on this wonderfully timely subject. And so let's jump into it here, if you don't mind. And I'd like to start with some quotes. It seemed like the most appropriate quotes to start this particular topic come from someone that we have probably already all heard of, a couple of Albert Einstein quotes, and that I think have a lot of applicability to this topic. One of it is insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's what I've been consulting for over 50 years with companies of all sorts of businesses. And what you usually find is people are going back and trying the same thing over and over and over again and are just surprised that it doesn't seem to change much. What really changes is the economic conditions. And sometimes what they do, things are very successful because there's not many jobs. And other times it's not very successful because there's lots of jobs and few employees, but they're doing the same thing. And so we're going to talk about maybe doing something different. And I think the other, maybe even more insightful Einstein quote is the second one. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking that we used to create them in the first place. So if we think about, okay, right now we're talking about a problem of employee retention. And one of the biggest issues I think we find about this, that I found about this, is that mostly people blame the external factors, which are certainly a big contributor. But there's nothing you can do about those external factors. So what you find is almost regardless of the external factors, some people are succeeding in a superlative manner in the exact same conditions that other people are not. And so we're going to talk about folks that are able to succeed even under the conditions that we've had the last few years and have succeeded extremely well. So, but I will tell you their secret. And I'm going to reveal it more in detail because that's what this whole webinar is about. But the big top line secret is they think differently about employee retention than most other leaders think about. And because they think differently, they do some different things, and it's remarkably successful. And I very much appreciate the privilege of being able to share with you. Well, what are those things that companies that are actually superb and have been superb over these few years, even as tough as this hiring environment has been? So it's better. So let's talk about that. And so three kinds of things we liked about is let's talk about a different level of thinking. Because if you think about the second Einstein quote, is that you're not going to solve the problem with the current level of thinking that you're doing. You've gotten as good a results as you can get with what you're doing. So what is it that we can do a little differently that they could maybe get you better results of what you want related to employee retention? And then we're going to talk about the concepts that are actually used. So this isn't stuff that I just made up. One of the advantages of working with some of the best companies in the country of every type, including convenience stores and restaurants of just about every type, is that you get to learn from the very best. How do they do it? And you get to learn the pattern underneath it. The specifics are always confidential, but the patterns aren't. And that's what I'm able to share with you today. And then we're going to talk about where can we learn more about it. And as Jed pointed out, that Jed and Ben had both attended our Achieving World-Class Results class because they said, look, if we need to really see if this could be applicable to our study group members. And so they did the extremely good thing. Said, I'm going to attend the class and we're going to determine firsthand. They did and determined, wow, this has got a lot of material that a lot of study group members and leaders could benefit from. And so if you want to learn more about what I'm going to talk about, more in depth and stuff, we have public classes. Our next one starts July 14th, and our website is McClaskey Excellence, where you can register for it if you're interested. So that's where you can get some more information. So the first thing I want to tell you is it's possible. So I want to give you an example of someone who's had half the turnover for not only for a year, but probably for the last 2 decades, has had half the turnover, and they only pay parity. So they don't pay any more than their competitors. So let me just tell you that it's possible. And the particular company that I'm telling you about is Powell's Sudden Service. And they are a limited menu, drive-through only, hamburger, hot dog, quick service restaurant. Think of it as a McDonald's with a drive-through only with 1/5 of the number of items. And then you would probably tag what Powell's is. It's a regional, so it's only in Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. They have 30 stores. They have over 1,200 employees, and they have no staff that basically works. There's only 2 people that work outside the stores, so everything is done by the stores themselves. So these are not techniques and things that require. All the hiring is done by each store. So this hiring isn't done centrally. This is a decentralized HR environment. So every store is doing all of the things that I'm about to tell you about, all 30 of them. Individually.
David, you're going to use Powell's as your example, which happens to be a restaurant, but I'm right in that these techniques that they employ are applicable to any kind of business. Is that true?
You're absolutely right. It's applicable to any kind of business. And it's just that this is just a good representative business that's in operation, that's dealing with a workforce that's similar to what a lot of other operations workforces are like. So, but you're absolutely right, Chad. And Powell's is located in Northeast Tennessee and Southwest Virginia. They're there. They compete against the nationals. So think about your brand competing against the biggest one in the nation. And that's what they do. All of the big brands are in their service area. And so all of these comparisons are not compared. They're compared to the biggest and most successful quick service restaurants in the world. And this is how Powell's compares to them. And this is what a Powell's store looks like. You order here, you drive around the building, receive your order on the other side, and you drive off. Now, let me show you the results. The whole idea is that this is their results, and this has been their results for over a decade. They have 4 times the repeat business of a McDonald's or those other national competitors, 400% more repeat business. They're 4 times faster in their drive-through. Car leaves every 18 seconds. We're about the best the competitors can do is about every 72 seconds. While they're going 4 times faster, they are 10 times more accurate. They have 1 complaint every 3,500 orders. And if you know anything about the restaurant business, that is an absolutely eye-popping statistic. And they are the benchmark in hospitality. So isn't this what you want your folks to be? You want them to be fast, you want them to be accurate, you want them to be friendly. And PALS is a role model of all that, and the customers recognize it. But here's the slide I want to get to. While they're doing this, they have half the turnover of the industry, while their pay policy is parity. This has resulted in 38 years in a row of same-store sales growth and profits that are among the highest per square foot in the restaurant industry anywhere in the country. So I wanted to show you that it's very possible to do this, and to do this while you're having absolutely role model performance. Now, this is PALS Workforce, and this is very similar to the workforce that you're going to find in just about any quick service restaurant. So PALS competitors' workforce looks just like this too. 90% are 25 years and younger, 90% are part-time, 40% are 16 to 18 years old, and the pay policy is parity. In the entire area, the pay policy is parity. So everybody's basically paying the same thing for quick service restaurants. Now, I think you would agree there is no less experienced workforce than the one you're looking at right here. So this is about as tough as of a problem as you get. This is the younger generation that people have had a lot of trouble in terms of not only getting them to stay, but getting them when they come to work to be absolutely extraordinary performers. And PALS gets both of the things to happen at the same time. So we're not talking about compromise. So I hope what you're asking about this time is, how do companies like PALS and others do this? And that's what I'm going to spend the rest of the webinar talking about. And the first thing is, there's 3 principles that override this different way of thinking. This way, how do they think differently that gets these kind of extraordinary results? Not only we're going to be talking about related to employee retention, but it gets the results related to operations as well. And here's the 3 principles. One is they set everyone up for 100% success. I know of almost only the most extraordinary companies do this. Everybody else has already compromised their workforce because they don't even train them to 100%. They don't set them up for 100%, and they don't expect 100%. And I will tell you, companies that are extraordinary set people up for 100% and then expect it to happen, and it does. They eliminate gray. A lot of problems that we have related to this different way of thinking is we say things that are very vague, like be on time or greet the customers in a friendly manner. You can't manage under those kind of environments. You've got to be very precise in your language. And here's a real eye popper. Everything I'm going to tell you about and everything that extraordinary businesses do is they don't make trade-offs between the key stakeholders. We are going to talk about getting employee retention in a way that the customers, the employees, and the company all win at the same time. And let me give you an example. And most people are playing trade-off games. For example, if you give your employees, let's say you're going to give everybody $1 an hour raise. Well, okay, that's good for the employees, but that dollar had to come from somewhere. Did it come from you raising the prices and therefore it worked against the customers? Or did it come out of your margin and therefore it worked against the company? Unless that dollar also resulted in the same level of productivity, in which case it would be a win-win game. But that's not often what happens. I don't know what's happening in your environment, but a lot of my consulting clients are saying, look, we're paying a lot more for our labor and our productivity hasn't improved a bit. And in some cases, they even say the productivity's gotten worse. I hope that's not the case that you're experiencing. So these 3 principles underlie everything. And so what we're going to talk about is, so here's the question that the extraordinary companies have answered. How can I improve employee retention in a way that is good for the customers, the employees, and the company all at the same time? So it's this intersection between these 3 circles. Now, if you were just to think about it and say, okay, this is a leadership test. And if we had a little more time, I would actually give you a few minutes to do this. but let me give you 1 minute to do it. If you were to say, here's what I would do to improve employee retention, but it has to be good for the customers, the employees, and the company all at the same time, what would be in that square, in that union of the three circles? That's what extraordinary companies have answered. And that's how they go about getting retentions up to half of the retentions of what the industry is getting, while paying, but with no economic incentive. So think about what answers. So let me give you just a minute to think about that. But would you write something down? What would you be doing? But don't write anything down that's not a win for all three stakeholders. So this is the answers. So let me show you some of the answers that they've come up with that actually work, and that every company that wants to could do it if they wanted to. So the first one is you need to enable your employees to take care of your customers in your company at the 100% level. I talk to hundreds of leaders every year and thousands of leaders over the 50 years that I've been consulting worldwide. And almost nobody is setting up their employees at the 100% level. Only the most extraordinary companies do that. And they do it at about the same cost that the other folks are setting it up for a lot less than 100%. So the company has already decided to compromise the entire set. But it doesn't just compromise your employees. It compromises your customers and the employees and the company all at the same time. So all three parties lose when you don't set your employees up to 100% level. The second thing is that we're going to do it in a way that all three parties are going to win at the same time. So let's see what's the solution look like. And again, if you want to hear more detail, I teach a class that does this, but let me give you the bottom line of this. This is what this webinar is about, is let's just hit the bottom line of it. First of all, they hire for fit. You're going to find they're never going to hire people that are bad fits. Oh, we just need that person. They're not really good for our culture. They're not even friendly with people, but we need a body. Let's hire them. Now, if it's not a good fit, they don't hire them. So they do the work on recruiting to make it so that doesn't have an adverse effect on the business. But they're much better at recruiting than most companies because they don't allow the easy way out of hiring people that aren't good fits. The other thing is the pay policy has to be parity or better. You can have better than parity, but you can't have worse than parity. You can't keep great employees paying $2 or less than your competitors are paying. Now, I'm not talking about the radical extreme company that might be paying much more than everybody else is. I'm talking about what most of your competitors are paying. So parity is one of those conditions, but you don't have to pay a premium. These companies are getting extraordinary performance and twice the retention without paying more than their competitors are paying for their workforce. And I will tell you, Powell's has raised their pay because all of their competitors raised their pay. Now, it's not anywhere near like it is in some areas. I'll just tell you that it's probably around $10 an hour, somewhere in that kind of range as a starting salary for most of the crew. But that's exactly what all their competitors are paying as well. So parity is an important concept. Now, eliminating
quickly, David, on hiring for fit.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're going to flesh that out a little bit more, but
I wasn't.
The main point of the people on the call is, man, I'm working with truck drivers and they're so hard to find, or I'm working with these low wage kind of workers that you talked about, maybe more youthful, and man, they're so hard to find right now. I'm just hiring anybody. I'm relaxing all my standards just to get a warm body where I need it. How do we avoid that, or how do these leading companies avoid that? You said the external factors they're able to overcome.
So here's what they did. The basic problem is this. It's not that there's a lack of employees. That's not the problem. The problem is there's a lack of employees applying for your jobs. So when you start thinking about it's not that there's not employees around, and when you look around, all your competitors are hiring people and this kind of stuff. They may only be hiring, they would like more, but if you look collectively at the number of people that were hired last month in your area, there would be more than enough to fill your needs and then some. So it's not that they're not out there to be hired. They're just not applying for your job. So what you find is that when people think, oh, it's just they aren't there, they don't exist, et cetera, woe is me, I can't do anything about it. That's exactly how they act. How about when you say, look, I'm never going to compromise the hire for fit standard, and I'm going to do the work to find the people who actually want to be set up for 100%, who don't want to work for somebody who doesn't really set them up well, who really does a poor job. Like I've talked to some truck drivers, and they complain a lot about who they're working for. And then they tell me, here's what's wrong with the job, A, B, C, D, and E. Now, it's not the pay. That's not what's wrong with the job. They're saying, yeah, they paid a lot of money. But then they do this and this and this and this, and I'm just dying to go work for someone else. I just need to find somebody who will pay near that salary, and I'm gone. So I find a lot of things that companies are doing are actually compromising and working against themselves. And you go, wow, how do we really set the employees up for 100% success? And that's this third factor. And when you set people up for 100% success, you don't have to compromise. Now, it may be that you might have to cut back some things. If it's, look, I just can't do this. But usually when that has happened with extraordinary companies, it's been a fairly short interval. But when they've had a choice of operate the business right or operate the business wrong, they've always chose to operate the business right. And if you're a restaurant, you're a full service restaurant, you may have 1/3 of your tables blocked off. I'm not seating people in those tables because I don't have the wait staff for them. Rather than I'm going to seat everybody in the restaurant, and even though I only have the staffing to do this 3/4 right, or I'm going to hire staffing that really doesn't do a good job of service, just so I can open up all my tables. But they choose I'm going to work harder to get the right fit, and here's an important thing I want to come up with. I'm going to work harder in making sure my good employees don't leave me. That's the real key that's coming up here, is guard the back door and you don't have so much pressure on the front door. So you got to eliminate gray. It's another thing you do to set the employees up for 100% success. You've got to turn your expectations into black and white. Vagueness does nothing but cause trouble for everybody and causes employees to become unhappy. You design processes for 100% execution. Rather than these somewhat sloppily designed processes that I see all the time, that basically set people up to do a mediocre job, and everybody starts kind of getting on each other's nerves because the job isn't doing well. And why wasn't? The process was never designed right. It was always designed with things that were confusing, and then we didn't train them to 100% either. Everything's focused on the best way to achieve the mission, and operations is focused on the operations objective. And I want to get real clear, this is what extraordinary companies define the role of operations, because we haven't even done a good job of explaining to our store leaders what the heck they're there for. And here's what they're there for. They're there to deliver your product, services, and customer experiential factors. Those would be like cleanliness and image and things of that nature. 100% to your brand specifications, 100% of the time under 100% of the conditions. And so how do we get this to happen? Well, here's the things we do. We train for 100%. Most people are training for about 80% or so. I mean, I do this poll regularly in all my classes and talking to leaders. I can tell you the average company says they train their people to 75%. That's what they say about their own assessment. Then coach to 100%. Whenever someone's not doing it 100% right, let's do the right coaching. That is both positive and corrective coaching. Let's empower each employee for self-control, which means they know when they're doing the job, if they're getting the step right or wrong. They know if they're greeting the customer they just greeted. Did I get that greeting right, or did I not? And then they're empowered to only pass on work that's 100% to the brand specifications, because you can inspect the work and say, that's not right. I didn't stock that shelf right. I didn't greet that customer right. I didn't clean that restroom right. The employee knows it, and they're able to self-correct because they're set up as 100%. We're going to set up an environment for 100% performance. What you'll find is people will mostly do what everybody else is doing. So if you allow other people not to follow your processes, that's what almost everybody else can do. Making the full use of people's time and talent. Don't let people stand around doing nothing. One of the things we do in the class is we have people observe their security tapes for 20 minutes, and you could do this. Hopefully a time when the store manager isn't there. And what percent of the time, what percent of the employee time you see where people are standing around doing nothing? And the normal answer I get is around 25 to 30%. That's extremely disrespectful. It makes for jobs that people hate. The last thing is everything is done with respect for people. You never do anyway. Even I like to say you can fire a person respectfully. You should have the hard conversation, but you shouldn't do it in a disrespectful manner. Yet a lot of times you see when you hear people talk about the environment that they're working in, disrespect is one of the primary adjectives that starts to come out. And when I ask, tell me what you mean by that, they are absolutely describing the situation correctly. This should not be happening. So these are the things that people do. And what happens when you do that? You guard the back door. The way you get twice the retention is you have half of the people that you've already hired leave you, which means you work on, these are folks I really want to keep. These are good employees. What do I need to do to make it so they don't want to leave for someone else? I've already made it so they're not leaving for more money because I'm paying what everybody else is paying. But they leave for all those other things that companies do that aggravate them. And what extraordinary companies do is they set their employees up for 100%. People love working in an environment where they're not having to deal with screw-ups all the time. And where they're set up, that every customer, I can greet every customer and be friendly. Every time I stock it right. Every time I make a prepared food product, I make it right. Why? Because I was set up to do it 100% right, and I like working in that environment. So that's sort of the bottom line. Let me do this. If you will point your phone at the screen and at this target, it will give you a website to click on, and go ahead and click on it, and you can vote on how satisfied were you with this session. So if you'll take your cell phone, point it at the screen, and that should take you to a website, and then just vote. Let's see if it's worked. So if you could vote here in the next 30 seconds. So far we have 4 votes in, so I can see some people are getting through.
Well, while people are doing this, David, I think it's interesting the point you were making on the last slide, which is people in general want to do a good job. They want to be busy. They want to have their work matter. And sometimes I feel like we fall in the mindset of there's some wrench in the process that slows them down or prevents them from really making the positive difference they want. And we're like, well, hey, I'm paying you by the hour. But that's a frustration.
Yeah.
They want their hour to be well utilized, and that's getting to that respect for people that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I hardly know any business that sets their employees up for 100% success. I have what I call the McClaskey $1,000 bet. Would you bet the next customer that walks into your business will get 100% of the products and services to your brand specifications? And I hardly know any manager or owner of their business that would make that bet on their own business. They already know they have set the business up to be compromised. And what I would tell you, I would make that bet on Pals. You could go to Pals and let's just say if you order French fries, I'd bet you $1,000 of my own money, double or nothing. Those French fries are going to be hot. They'll be everything else, but they'll be hot. I wouldn't make that bet in any other quick service restaurant brand that there is. Why? Because Pals employees are set up for 100% success. Because they're set up for 100% success, they stay twice as long. And
well, it sounds really good, David. Thanks for your time today. And for the audience, we tried to make this a short, quick hitter and get to the bottom line. But as you know, the devil's in the details and really implementing this. And if you want to take David's class, it goes into a lot more in depth on these points that he talked about today. But I wanted to get you a quick hit on what are some areas that these leading firms are using to move the needle. David, any last comments you want to make?
No, I think if you have greatly capable people, if you'll set them up for 100% success, they will stay much longer than they're staying now. And if you'll do that, you may find that you're saying, I've got twice the employee retentions of my competitors, and I'm not paying any more than they are. And that's what extraordinary companies have learned how to do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, David, and thank you, listener, for being on the call. I hope you found this valuable. Have a good day. Take care.
Bye-bye.